Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. Finally, I found some time again to bring you the next game of this great tournament. At the moment, I'm at 3 games finished and I'm quite happy about my position in the standings. I'm at the second place, but only 2 points behind Himmelstosh, and Himmelstosh also has already one more game finished than me. Binki, who is behind me, has already 5 games finished, and Airren is quite behind at the moment. However, he has also only 2 games finished, so for him it is still all possible. The next game that we are seeing today is the second one of the 4-player games, so that definitely could change quite a lot in the standings. And now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game, I'm in the 4th position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there's maybe not that much lab synergy in H3. There is Marie Curie, there is Sid Meier, but apart from those two leaders, not a lot else. No spaceflight, maybe at least the Manhattan Project is there, but also no Bill Gates, no Einstein, no Steve Jobs. Instead, we have some culture leaders with Fleming, Chaplin, also the Hollywood is there. We have the Red Cross, Gandhi is there to potentially hide behind, Churchill, Manhattan Project for the military, and also Mandela is there. In H2 we have some culture leaders with Anthony Gaudi, Shakespeare and Darwin. There's also Newton as a very strong economic leader. We have some strong wonders also with ocean liner service and Suez Canal, also the railroad, the ocean liner service is there together with Maria even, which can be very strong. There's one military action leader with Catherine. In H1 we have 2 military action leaders with Joan of Arc and Jan Žižka. There's also Columbus, who can maybe work nicely with the Suez Canal. Nostradamus can help with the strength as well. Saladin is of course very solid. And then we have Michelangelo, who can maybe work nicely with the St. Peter's Basilica. And also Leonardo da Vinci for some lab and printing press synergy. Airren starts the game and he just takes Hammurabi. He has to make a choice between 2 very strong leaders and he rather wants to go for Hammurabi. That leaves Himmelstosh with Confucius and even gets him with the rich land, so both of those players have already taken a very strong leader now. And then Binki goes for an interesting decision. He could have just gone for Roman roads maybe, but instead he goes for the Colossus. He gets a yellow card together with the Colossus, and there is the Suez Canal in the game, so that of course always makes the Colossus quite a bit stronger and can be a very nice payoff with maybe going for some colonies, and he is willing to go for the Colossus here together with the urban growth instead of the Roman roads. At my turn, I don't have that many choices. I can either go for Roman roads and then maybe the cultural heritage, or I can go for engineering genius and then maybe the cultural heritage. If I go for engineering genius and the cultural heritage, then I really don't know anything about what wonders or leaders I will get. The Roman roads will very likely be taken away by Airren or Himmelstosh, and then there is no other leader or wonder in the row at the moment. Of course I know which leaders could come out, so I can maybe hope for some, but I don't really know anything. Maybe I can hope to get a better wonder, maybe the pyramids, but it just felt bad to have not any knowledge about what I will get, and so I instead rather went for the Roman roads, so I at least have quite a solid wonder. I was not too happy about the leaders that I could get, because 2 very strong ones are already taken away, and the other ones that are left are maybe not that great with the Roman roads. Aristotle, Ashoka, both maybe not that great with the Roman roads. Moses, Sun Tzu, Homer. I wasn't too happy about those leaders, so maybe I could have thought about taking the engineering genius, but I think that could also cause some issues, especially if I maybe have to pay 2 then for either a leader or a wonder, which could potentially happen. So instead I just went for the Roman roads. I thought about not taking the cultural heritage, so that Airren has to pay an additional civil action for the engineering genius, but at the end I wasn't willing to do it, because this yellow card could potentially end up being quite useful. Don't know what leader I will get yet, and if I should get Ashoka, it could be quite strong to already have a yellow card in hand, and also I would do a sacrifice for myself only to hurt one opponent, and that's maybe also something that you shouldn't really do in 4-player games. So I end up taking the cultural heritage. At least that also means that more leaders will be revealed. Now it's Airren's turn. He takes the urban growth, takes the engineering genius, goes for Hammurabi, and then builds a mine, so he's not willing to pay an additional civil action for the pyramids. Could have potentially maybe build a mine, take engineering genius and pyramids, not increase the population yet, but instead he just goes for a mine and maybe can go for the hanging gardens at the next turn, also leaves himself open for a potential early H1 wonder. That means that Himmelstosh can now go for the pyramids for 1 civil action, and that is quite a nice start for him now. Confucius in the pyramids. Binki has only one leader available for one civil action. Actually, all the other leaders are occupying the 2 civil action area, and so he just goes for Sansu, and that's maybe not too bad for him. He has the Colossus, so maybe he can set up a nice colonization game, or maybe push some bad strength events into the deck. And at my turn I have 2 leaders available for one civil action, and as said in the turn before, both of them are maybe not too great to have together with the Roman roads, but I still want to go for one of them. I definitely don't want to pay an additional civil action for one of the other 2 leaders. So the question is, which leader do I want to go for? I have already the cultural heritage in hand, so maybe that could make Ashoka quite nice. Quite a nice leader for me, and I definitely thought about him. I have already 1 yellow card in hand. Maybe I will manage to get 2 other colors in hand relatively easily, and then maybe I can have a relatively nice Ashoka game, but getting additional production from Ashoka, and then maybe also the Realm Roads, and then maybe having to take some cards in hand. It can definitely be a little bit messy, can lead to some corruption issues. I definitely considered it, but at the end I thought maybe the additional signs from Aristotle will combine better together with the Rome roads than Ashoka, and also I was looking at the cards that are coming down the row. There are some different colors in the row at the moment, however I thought that the irrigation might very likely be taken away before my turn, and I also thought that maybe Binki could take the cartography to potentially set themselves up for a very nice colonization game, and then apart from this 1 yellow card there are only a lot of grey cards on the row at the moment. Of course there could be some new colors, but very unlikely those won't be available for one civil action, and then it could be that I maybe only can take one of those grey cards, and so instead of going for Ashoka I just went for Aristotle, and then maybe I can take one of those happy face solutions or something at the next turn for one civil action, score science with Aristotle, so that could maybe be quite nice. So I go for Aristotle instead of Ashoka, build a mine and increase my population. I draw the fighting band and a colonization card. Airren goes for an interesting turn here, but I think it definitely can make a lot of sense. He takes the printing press for 2 civil actions, a card that is maybe not taken for 2 civil actions that often in 3 and 4 player games, but he goes for it here. He has Hammurabi, has an additional civil action from him, goes for the Hanging Gardens, builds 1 stage of the Hanging Gardens, and builds even another stage of the Hanging Gardens, doesn't go into consumption yet, uses all of his civil actions like this. At the next turn he has enough science to go for the printing presses. He didn't commit to his 2nd lab yet, and when making this decision I think he very likely also had this Leonardo in mind that is coming down the row. At the next turn with having the printing presses he can maybe, if Leonardo is not taken away, just go for printing presses, get a very big science boost, and then together with the happy faces from the Hanging Gardens here might also have the necessary population to support those printing presses. And then in H2 there are some nice culture synergies for those printing presses with Anthony Gaudi, Shakespeare and Darwin, so I think that is an interesting turn, but I think it definitely makes a lot of sense, and if he gets Leonardo he could maybe get quite a nice boost already at his next turn for his science production, and it might be worth it to skip the 2nd lab and get a little bit less science to then get a big boost at the next turn. Himmelstosh seeds and the development of settlement is revealed. He builds the 2nd lab now and is just willing to take the Airren for 3 civil actions. Maybe the other cards that are on the row are not that great alternatives, could maybe go for an early irrigation, but he just wants to go for the Airren thanks to the additional science from Confucius. He will be able to go for the Airren already the next turn, and that of course could give him a very nice boost for his economy. Binki seeds and the development of politics is revealed, so some additional cards for everyone. I draw another tactic, the rebellion and the enslave. Binki uses the urban growth now to build a 2nd lab. At the turn before he didn't use the urban growth, rather wanted to start with the mine first. That means that now maybe if there's a 2 resource development revealed he can already finish the Colossus at the next turn, and now irrigation and cartography are indeed taken away, so so far both of them were still in the row, but now Binki takes both of them, and now it wouldn't have been that easy to maybe get a lot of colors with Ashoka. On the other hand there are some other colors of course now coming down the row, but all of them will stay on 2 civil actions for me. Then now it is my turn. I don't really want to push the rebellion here in general. I maybe don't want to push the deck too much. I thought a little bit about maybe denying Leonardo here. There's an alchemy coming down the row, however that alchemy might very likely be taken away. I mean there's maybe a chance that I will get it. Binki has already invested some civil actions into taking some cards, but he still could relatively easily maybe take it. Himmelstosh could potentially take it. So just deny Leonardo from Airren. I wasn't willing to take him for 2, especially because I have a nice alternative. If this alternative wouldn't be available, then I think I could think about it. If I don't get this alchemy, maybe I will get an other alchemy and can just stick with Aristotle for some more turns, but with another copy of an early Airren being available, I at the end was willing to give Leonardo to Airren and take the Airren. And now I could even, or I will actually take one of those happy face solution technologies, and then even without building the second lab, I would have enough science to go for the Airren at the next turn. If I don't build the second lab, I could even go for 2 upgrades immediately at the next turn, so that could be something to consider. I could then maybe play the Cultural Heritage with my last civil action, or maybe even take a rich land, but I at the end made the decision to build the second lab. I think getting some additional science production is still quite useful, maybe making it that I a lot easier can go for Airren and then another technology, which also can be nice for Aristotle, so that I can maybe take another technology in hand and also develop it, and or I still can go for at least 1 Airren upgrade at the next turn, and then with my last civil action I could potentially just play the Cultural Heritage. I could take the rich land, which could potentially mean that I can go for some Airren upgrades quicker, but as I said, I can take one of those 2 cards here and score science with Aristotle. Getting a happy face solution for only 1 civil action is not bad, and I also get 1 science as said, so I think that might be the best solution. The question now is, of course, do I want to go for the theology or do I want to go for the bread and circuses? There is no Pierre in the game. There is, however, Darwin in the game, but there's also Joan of Arc in the game, and in general I just think I like the theology a little bit more. If this would be Pierre in the game, I probably would go for the bread and circuses here, because that is just a very nice late, could potentially open up for a very strong leader late in the game. But no, I just think I like the theology a little bit more. If there is no free religion, then I think it's close, and maybe the bread and circus is a little bit better than. However, as soon as there's a free religion, I just like the theology a lot more than the bread and circuses, and so I went for the theology here, and at least I may be nicely set up for a potential Joan of Arc, which can potentially be a nice leader for me later on. And I score another science with Aristotle the next turn, I can then maybe just start going for Airren and maybe take some more cards potentially. I reveal the fighting ban tactic so that I can keep some other cards in hand. I keep the other tactic and the colonization card. Also, I was very happy about my draw here. I draw the open borders agreement, and that definitely is, of course, always a very nice pact to have. Airren seeds and the development of trade routes are revealed. He reveals the legion tactic, increases population, and then goes for Leonardo. That of course makes a lot of sense, and then he will just go for printing press, builds 1, and builds even another 1, and is now already at 4 science production, so that's definitely quite strong. Has a very nice leader going for himself, and with the Hanging Gardens he still should have some population available to put also into the military. Himmelstosh seeds and the development of religion is revealed, so now I was very happy that I have taken the theology instead of the bread and circuses. Himmelstosh will take the free religion, starts going for the Airren, and then takes 1 rich land, which can maybe make it that he can, no, I mean he can already go for 2 upgrades, but it still just saves him 2 resources. Binki takes the knights for 2 civil actions. Maybe he has already taken drawn a strong tactic for those knights, and that can maybe be upgraded with Sun Tzu, and he is even building a knight, reveals the medieval army tactic, so he is even willing already to invest into those knights, but with going up to 6 strength he is definitely putting some pressure on all of his opponents, and that can definitely cause some awkward responses, and he maybe wants to do this at some point anyway. The event deck is already will already be be flipped very quickly, and so it definitely might not be bad to just already invest into this 1 knight and reveal the tactic now. And now that Binki has done it, I was even more happy that I have drawn the open borders agreement at the turn before, because that will help me quite a lot to prepare myself for defending against this push from Binki. I mean, I could still, without it, maybe build a warrior, and then I could defend myself with the fighting man tactic, but still it is very useful, because Binki of course might even go for more strength at some point. The question now is, of course, which of the other opponents do I want to offer this pact to? I could either offer it to Himmelstosh or maybe to Airren. Both of them have 2 military actions. I think both of them have a nice start. Airren has this nice Leonardo start, but Himmelstosh has the pyramids and has some early Airren production going. So I think both of them have a similarly strong position. And so I was just mainly thinking about which player will maybe hurt it more, to maybe having to invest more to be able to defend from Binki, and at the end I thought maybe it will hurt Himmelstosh more, because if he gets the additional military action from the open borders agreement pact, maybe he can just build a warrior, and if he then has one defense card in hand, it might already be enough to defend himself. So he might build a warrior, and then he could just go for 2 iron upgrades, still continuing upgrading to his economy. So I thought that might be quite strong, and now that if he has only 2 military actions, then maybe he has to invest into potentially a swordsman, and maybe this copy of swordsman could already be taken away by Airren, and then he might even have some more issues. So I thought it could hurt more to maybe not have the additional military action. Airren, I mean, of course, it could also hurt him, but he maybe wants to go for swordsman anyway. I will give him the swordsman for 2 civil actions, and he doesn't have the greatest alternatives, but for Himmelstosh it could maybe mean that he can't go for those 2 iron upgrades, and so at the end I offered this pact to Airren. And also, as you can see, there is a second copy of Swordsman coming down the road, so it's actually guaranteed that Himmelstosh will get a copy if he wants to invest into it, but still, he might have to invest into it now that he doesn't get additional military action. At my turn, I then go for the Code of Laws. I could potentially just maybe invest into the Airren, but even with having the additional military action from the pact, I still need a little bit more strength to not be in danger of an aggression. And so if I want to build a warrior, then I don't have enough resource to go for an iron upgrade, and with having Aristotle, I score 1 science with going for Code of Laws, and having more civil action might also be quite useful. So I was willing to grab the Code of Laws here for 2 civil actions, and then I develop it, increase my population, build this warrior to go up to 3 strength. Now I am not in danger of any aggression, and with my last civil action I then grab the rich land. I could also think about just grabbing one of those other technologies, of course. I would score another science with Aristotle. That would already allow it then to go for iron guaranteed at the next turn. I mean, you can still play the cultural heritage. I can play take another technology at the next turn. But this rich land might just mean that I can go for an additional upgrade. At the moment, if I stay at 5 resource, it allows me to go for 2 instead of only 1 upgrade. Or if there are, for example, are 2 additional resource revealed, then this rich land can make a difference between going for 2 or 3 upgrades. And I thought it might just be very strong getting all of those resources, so being able to go for some upgrades quicker than maybe finishing the Rome roads afterwards, and then just having a very nice economy going. So yeah, at the end I rather wanted to take the rich land here, but going for the alchemy could definitely also be an idea, but maybe I can also have a chance to get one of the other copies of alchemies later on. Then I draw 2 pacts, but I already have the open borders agreement, so I probably don't want to offer any of those pacts. Airren doesn't go for a copy of Swordsman, he instead goes for a copy of Airren and is even willing to pay 3 civil actions for that. The reason, of course, might be that this copy of Medieval Army will very likely be upgraded, and then being on Medieval Armies with Knights is of course a lot more efficient than being on Swordsman, and so he's willing to pay an additional civil action. And now with having this open borders agreement pact, sadly he can just build a warrior and be relatively safe from a strength push, so now the additional military action has already done something for him, but at least he has to pay 3 civil actions for the Knights, so it's at least somewhat expensive, but of course it might be quite nice for him on the long run to be on the upgraded Medieval Army tactic instead of maybe being on the Legion tactic. Himmelstosh seeds, and the development of agriculture reveals some additional food for everyone. He takes the swordsman here, develops it, and then builds 1, upgrades 1, is now at 4 strength, is not in danger of any aggression. All of the players increase their strength, but Binki is still trying an aggression, maybe doesn't have anything else to do with his politics phase, but Airren has a defense card to defend his blunder. Binki then increases population, builds another warrior. He could have also built another knight, of course, but then he doesn't have enough resource to finish the Colossus at the next turn, which could be important, so instead he builds a warrior. Maybe also has a spare unit then already, in case there are some colonies coming. He takes the cultural heritage, some additional sciences, of course, always very useful. Also takes the patriotism, and then builds 1 stage of the Colossus already this turn, which also wouldn't have been possible if he would have built a knight instead of the warrior. This turn I take this copy of Swordsman. 2 of the 3 knights are already taken away. I could of course hope to somehow get still the last copy of knights and also go for the upgraded Medieval Army tactic, or maybe the Phalanx tactic as soon as the Medieval Army tactic isn't available for everyone, but it, I think, would be very risky to not take the swordsman, so I take those swordsmen in hand. Maybe I can still have a chance to get the knights, but in case I don't get those knights, I think I need those swordsmen, so I think it's a card that I have to take, and with taking it, at least I score another science with Aristotle, which also will allow me to go for some iron upgrades now. Potentially I also could have just gone for finishing the Rome roads, that would increase my resource production by 1, and at least I would have the Rome roads already out of the way. I would have spent all of those civil actions already, but I think I can also spend my civil actions nicely now that I go for the iron, and it just gives me a little bit more production. I can go for those 2 upgrades, and at the next turn I can potentially finish the Rome roads, and with my last civil action I was then willing to take the monarchy. Maybe I can find a nice time to do a revolution into the monarchy, that could be interesting. If not, maybe I can even go for it peacefully at some point. At least I have the Code of Laws already, so it might just be a nice alternative for me to have in hand. And who knows, maybe I, as said, can do a nice revolution at some point, and so I was willing to go for this monarchy. And of course I score again another science with Aristotle, so Aristotle didn't work too badly, considering that I have him together with the Rome roads. But of course I also didn't spend any civil actions on the Rome roads yet, so maybe when I will do this, then of course I won't be able to take a lot of cards, but I already have taken 5 technologies, which I think is a decent amount to take with Aristotle. Airren then finishes the Hanging Gardens, increases his population, interestingly takes the Alchemy, and then develops the Knights, builds one, and reveals the Phalanx tactic is now at 7 strength. He takes the Alchemy, he is already in printing presses, has only 1 lab, so it's not a great card, but if we take a look at his alternatives, we can also see that there is not really anything else that is nice for him. The only alternative would be the Theology, but he doesn't really need a Happy Face at the moment, so maybe just having the Alchemy is at the end the best that he can do here when he wants to do all of the other actions. Himmelstosh seeds, so now finally the event deck is flipped. Not a lot of events have been seeded in the last 2 rounds. The development of civil life is revealed now, and Himmelstosh will use that to increase his population, goes for 1 more upgrade to his mines, builds a swordsman to get a bit stronger, to not be in danger of an aggression, takes the masonry, the breakthrough, and develops the masonry already, so that he can finish the pyramids quite efficiently at his next turn. Binki seeds, he is the strongest. Luckily for me there is no strength event revealed yet, instead a Confucius event, which gives everyone 1 additional science. Binki this turn finishes the Colossus, is now already at 10 strength, develops the Cartography with the development of civil life, plays the cultural heritage, and then takes the Code of Laws and Columbus. Maybe he has already drawn a nice colony, can of course also hope to get a jackpot draw with the Colossus and maybe an early H2 colony, so that of course makes a lot of sense, especially also with the Suez Canal being in there. Now it's my turn, and I have to get stronger this turn. There's not a lot that I can do about it. I can just finish the Rome roads potentially, but no, I would just be very vulnerable staying at 3 strength, and I was hoping that maybe at the next turn I can still finish the Rome roads, because all of my opponents have only 4 civil actions at the moment. Binki might go for the Code of Laws. Maybe he also doesn't have to do the most stuff. But no, I was still hoping that maybe not the most cards will be taken. If I don't take not a lot of cards, then maybe I still have a chance. And if not, I won't invest into any stages this turn, so if I will lose it, then at least I didn't invest into any resources into the Rome roads. But I think I have to go for the swordsman here. I will go for building 2, that puts me at 8 strength. And also I made the decision to go for Joan of Arc here. I could potentially wait for some other interesting leaders. There could be Anshishka, there could be Nostradamus. Both of them of course could be quite solid. But Joan of Arc might also be quite solid. I will get 1 strength out of her immediately. I will get some knowledge about the event deck. The military action will be nice. And if I go for Theology, which I might have to do very soon anyway, maybe already at the next turn, if the age should end, then I also get even more strength out of her. And I can take her now. The alternatives, if I want to go for those 2 swordsmen, are maybe not that great. I could of course play the cultural heritage, maybe take some of those yellow cards or something like this, but then I would still need to spend some civil actions to take leader at the following turns, and if the age doesn't end, if I want to finish the Rome roads, then I don't have a lot of free civil actions at the next turn, so it might be important to already have taken the leader already this turn. And also Anshishka might be taken away. There is still Binki. Actually Binki has the Columbus already, but Himmelstosh could still want to go for a leader, and Jan Žižka or Nostradamus of course are both interesting for him. I mean, I would be guaranteed to get at least one of those 2, but I think it's just too important to spend those 2 civil actions already this turn, so that I have them out of the way, can maybe just finish the Rome roads potentially at the next turn, and then also don't have to spend those civil actions at the beginning of H2. So I go for Joan of Arc, and then I play just a cultural heritage. I could potentially also take the urban growth, but I thought the additional science might be more useful. There is at least a chance that the age will end, and so I thought I want to get this additional science because I don't have the most science production. At the next turn, if the age doesn't end, I can finish the Rome roads. If the age should end, I have to go for the theology. Then I don't get the Rome roads, but maybe at least I can take a strong age 2 wonder, or maybe also the Great Wall could be very interesting. So I think that maybe I would still prefer to finish the Rome roads, but maybe it also wouldn't be too bad if I should lose it. Now it means I'm at a 9 strength. I draw 2 cards, the Inhabited Territory and the Raid. Airren uses the development of civil life to develop the alchemy interestingly. Also goes for the warfare, that gives him some additional strength, and then he will build a warrior that makes it that he's one of the 2 strongest now, and he also develops 2 technologies, so maybe that could be a hint that there could potentially be some dark ages in there. Maybe that was also the reason why he took the alchemy already. Or maybe he's just preparing for potential dark ages that was seeded by one of his opponents. And Himmelstosh seeds now, there are no dark ages revealed yet, instead the reds. Not a lot of food is lost, Binki loses the most food, Airren even loses no food at all. Himmelstosh has still to go for leader. He could wait for Nostradamus or Jan Žižka, but then he would need to spend some civil actions in H2. Now he can take the leader for 1 civil action, and he also can get the civil action back after electing him. And also with having some iron production, with having some masonry, Michelangelo can definitely be quite an interesting leader to have. So he goes for Michelangelo, also goes for the theocracy after finishing the pyramids, and then has now some decent civil military actions, and a strength and happy face from the theocracy might be very helpful for him to stay competitive in the strength. But also interestingly, we can see that Michelangelo is not producing an additional cult from the theocracy, because he only produces additional cults from happy face, from wonders or urban buildings. So sadly that is not a synergy, but of course the theocracy is still very nice to have here. Binki seeds, and then the new deposits are revealed. It is a nice event for me. I get 5 resources out of it, and the same as Himmelstosh, so that is quite nice. Binki then goes for the irrigation this turn, could go for the Code of Laws, but then maybe he couldn't do the nicest things with his last civil actions. Instead he gets some food production going and takes the breakthrough. Very interestingly, he doesn't elect Columbus yet, which maybe could mean that he really wants to get those 2 additional draws from Sun Tzu. Apart from that, there are not that many reasons, I think, to not elect Columbus. At the next turn he will then lose the civil action, but maybe he doesn't have a nice colony yet, maybe he wants to get an additional draw with Sun Tzu, but maybe it could also be fine to just elect Columbus here. Now it's my turn. I made a decision to seed, as you see. Of course I also see what is on top with Joan of Arc, and the event on top are the Dark Ages. And this turn I might not spend any science, so now it is a very nice time for me to reveal it. And also it is maybe nice to reveal it because it will remove a strong option from Airren. He, with being at 5 science, could just go for Airren at the next turn, also helps him to get out of corruption very nicely. However, now if he loses 1 science he can't go for Airren, and then it's not that easy for him to get out of corruption. There is still one nice solution, or at least one solution that is not too bad how he can do it, but maybe going for the Airren would have been his preferred solution. So I think also to maybe remove some options from him, it could be nice to reveal the Dark Ages now, but also of course just because I lose 0 science now. This turn I will first of all upgrade those 2 warriors to swordsmen, making me the strongest, making sure that I'm not the weakest after my turn. And now of course the normal thing to do could be to just finish the Rome roads, getting this wonder going. So I think that could be quite nice. But I think there's also one alternative that should be considered, and that is to just do a revolution to monarchy. I can do the revolution without losing anything to corruption. And then I just have a government farm going. I'm going into H2 with 6 civil and 4 military actions that could be quite strong. And while I don't get the Rome roads, I can very easily grab another wonder. Maybe I can think about or hope to get a Great Wall at the next turn. Maybe I can hope for an early ocean liner service. So I think that could potentially be interesting. But on the other hand, I thought the Great Wall is very likely be taken away by Himmelstosh. Maybe I can then still get Temeci Castle, but Temeci Castle I also don't like too much, but I mean it could maybe be fine, but I can maybe also go for it if I just finish the Rome roads. And so that could potentially be interesting, I think, to do the revolution to monarchy, but the Rome roads might still produce me quite a lot of value. especially also the science production could be quite useful to have now in H2, and so I at the end was not willing to go for the revolution, even though I think it could be interesting, but at the end I rather just finish the Rome roads, and with that I can also go for one more upgrade to my mines, so I already go up from 5 to 7 resource production this turn. I will get more science production. The yellow token won't be that useful immediately, but might be useful at some point, and so yeah, I was willing to finish the Rome roads very late in H1 instead of going for this revolution. Like this I can maybe still hope to get an H2 government form at some point. Maybe I won't get into that easily, so there are definitely some merits with going for the monarchy revolution, but at the end I made the decision to go for the Rome roads instead. And I could have potentially thought about taking the alchemy, but at the next turn I have to go for the theology to fix my happy face issues, and then in 2 turns I think it will be very late, and I think it's a lot better to just hope for something nice from H2. I am the strongest now. Sadly Airren doesn't seed, so there's no chance that I will get hit, that I win a strength event, and now with Airren being at 4 science he can't go for the Airren, but there's still one relatively nice way to get out of corruption, and that is with grabbing the Silk Road, building one stage, and then going for this upgrade to alchemy, that he misses out in the Airren, but he has more science production, and at the next turn he can finish the Silk Road, gets even more science production, can then maybe relatively easily go into an H2 government form, and also maybe has enough science to relatively easily go for coal if he should get a copy. But 1 copy of the Airrens will be discarded, so the copies of coal might be relatively heavily contested. At Himmelstosh's turn I was a little bit surprised at first to see him taking the Michi Castle. Thought the Great Wall could be very nice for him, but he also realizes that, and he just wants to go for both of those wonders. Goes for the Michi Castle and for the Great Wall, getting some nice value out of Michelangelo, and also getting going for a lot of strength wonders now. Those might secure him the strength lead. The happy face from the Great Wall will be quite nice, also produce some additional culture with Michelangelo, and so I think he sets himself up quite nicely here. Now it's Binki's turn. He seeds, and a good harvest is revealed, giving some additional food to all of the players. Binki gets the most food of it, thanks to having the irrigation going. He elects Columbus now, builds an additional religion to get out of corruption, and then takes the frugality. With taking the frugality, the Conmon will fall down to 2 civil action for me, which is very nice. So instead of maybe going for the monarchy, I can maybe set myself up to go for a constitutional monarchy revolution very nicely. And I thought about what I can do at my turn, and I came to the conclusion that maybe I can improve my turn quite a lot if I get this trade routes agreement accepted, and then I can use resource for food to increase my population. The population will be unhappy, but I can maybe do just, my turn will still be quite a bit better, preparing me for a revolution quite nicely, and I had some hopes that Binki will accept it, because Binki, when we can take a look at his turn, has this irrigation production, so for him using food as resource might potentially be quite nice, and also additionally, if Binki would have accepted this pact, the open borders agreement pact between me and Airren would have been cancelled, so I was really hoping that he might accept the pact. At the moment it only helps me to get 1 more population out, which is of course quite useful for me, especially not having those 3 food lying around. But he is still not willing to accept it, even though the open borders agreement would have been cancelled, and so sadly I will be stuck with those 3 food for a little bit longer. And then this turn, as said, I want to prepare myself to go for the constitutional monarchy, but first of all, of course, I have to fix my uprising issue, and I have to go for this H1 temple to not have any uprising. Then I still have some civil actions left, so I take the constitutional monarchy. The next turn I have just enough science to potentially do a revolution, and now that I can't use the pact, or now that Binki didn't accept the pact, I have not that many things that I can do with my last civil action, so I just grabbed the engineering genius. I also thought about going for a drama potentially, but no, I thought there are some nice wonders that I can potentially get, the ocean liner service, maybe the railroad. Maybe I can even potentially win a colony, even though that's maybe not that likely with Binki having that big of a colonization force, but still I at the end rather went for the engineering genius than going for the drama. And if Binki would have accepted a pact, then instead of taking the engineering genius, I would have increased my population and built an additional theology, giving me a little bit more strength, giving me a little bit more culture reduction, and at the next turn I could then even do the revolution without having corruption, so that would already make up for not getting the resource from the engineering genius. I would have an additional population, so I think that would be quite strong, and with that maybe Binki was not willing to accept this pact. And so at the next turn my plan is to maybe do the revolution, unless there are some very important other cards to take, then I maybe have to take them, but if not I can maybe just do a revolution. Being at 7 civil actions will be quite nice then, and maybe can improve my position quite a lot. I do draw some colonies, so those colonies at least aren't in the hand of Binki. Airren copies the medieval army tactic this turn, finishes the Silk Road. Sadly, with copying the tactic he's now at 13 strength, and with that is stronger than me. He also has a lot of science production going right now, and maybe he can already get a government form at his next turn potentially. There is a republic coming down the row. Let's see if that one will be taken away potentially. Himmelstosh will finish the Great Wall this turn, is now at 14 strength, so he also makes sure to get stronger, takes the reserves, and also takes the drama in hand. Binki doesn't use Columbus yet, instead he cedes, and the developed territory is opened. I saw that territory already being on top at my turn when I offered a pact, and Binki is able to win it. I definitely wasn't willing to pay that much as I bid here, but I just was very convinced that Binki would at least bid 5, that he would at least bid the knight for that, so I just wanted to make sure that he doesn't get it for only a warrior, that he has to either send a colonization card or knight. Maybe it's an unnecessary risk, but I just was very much convinced that Binki would bid that much, and like this, at least he has to send his colonization card away. And then Binki will use the frugality, builds the knight, takes the strategy in hand, develops the strategy, likes this also get stronger, makes sure to get more draws in, to maybe prepare for nice Zeus cannon, to maybe also increase the chances that he gets nice colony with Columbus. And and like this, sadly, I'm the weakest at my turn. At least I see what is on top, but it's not that nice to see. At least it isn't anything that will hurt me, but there is the foray on top, and now I don't have a chance to be part of that event. However, there are some very nice cards for me in the row, and with that I made the decision to not do the revolution this turn. Instead I go for the ocean liner service. I think that's just a very strong wonder for me to have, and I also don't want to give this wonder to one of my opponents, so I just take it, and I don't do the revolution now, but at least I can even maybe make it that I can go for the command peacefully if I grab this revolutionary idea. That I already have enough science to go for the command peacefully, and then maybe also can just finish the ocean liner service at the next turn. So just think that is a very strong option for me, and a lot better than doing the revolution now. For my last civil action I could potentially just build a stage, but I think the main decision is between taking 2 cards here, and those 2 cards are either Cavalryman or the Breakthrough. I don't have any Cavalryman or Cavalry technology yet. If I don't take the Cavalryman, then there will be only 1 copy of Cavalryman left, so that definitely could be quite dangerous. On the other hand, the Breakthrough is also quite a nice card for me. I'm still relatively low in science. I will invest a lot of my science into the Conmon, and then the 3 additional science from the Breakthrough could just make a very big difference. Also, both of those Breakthroughs might be taken away otherwise before my next turn, so there won't be any other science yellow card left in H2. So it was a close decision for me, but I at the end just thought a breakthrough is too important here. Now if I go for the Conmon at the next turn, I will be at in 2 turns I will be at 7 science instead of 4, so I can potentially maybe go for scientific methods or something, so that might just make a very big difference. And I was hoping that with Binki and Airren already having the knights, and with maybe Himmelstosh still taking the cavalryman, that I can still get the cavalryman if I will really need the technology. But of course it is a risk that I take here, but I at the end just thought the science is too valuable for me here. I get some draws in here, and I get a colonization card, and also the trade agreement pact, which can potentially be quite nice. Airren cedes, the foray is revealed, so sadly I'm not part of that, but at least it also isn't an event that hits me directly. The Republic wasn't taken by any of the other players, so Airren gets quite a strong boost here, can invest his science very nicely, takes the breakthrough, that gives him a lot of science with the Silk Road, takes the selective breeding, and also the navigation. Himmelstosh cedes, and the cultural influence is revealed. That gives Himmelstosh and Airren quite a bit of additional culture. Both of them have some nice culture production going. Himmelstosh then takes the railroad. He can take that for very cheap with Michelangelo, and gets now even another strength wonder going. He also takes the scientific method, but isn't willing to invest into the scientific method already this turn. Instead just takes scientific method, railroad, and a cavalryman in hand, but he can maybe go for some science upgrades, and then this railroad, and then he has definitely quite a decent economy going, and with the railroad can maybe also make sure to be at a strength lead again. and he takes the cavalryman. Maybe that at least increases my chances that I will be able to get the last of those cavalrymen at some point. Binki this turn uses Columbus, and he had hit a jackpot here. He gets the autonomous territory, takes 4 signs out of that. With that, maybe he can a lot easier go for a government form at some point, so I think that's of course very strong for him. Maybe didn't have the greatest position yet, but this autonomous territory definitely will help him a lot, and maybe can improve his position here quite a bit. He then builds a warrior, goes up to 18 strength already, gets also out of corruption like this, takes the cannons, the engineering genius, that will help him maybe a lot in case he wants to go for the Suez Canal at some point, and then he also takes the urban growth. At my turn I again see what event is on top, and it is the knowledge of the ancients, but I don't want to see it. Instead I offer the international trade agreement. I will go for the Conmon this turn, so I have enough military actions, and instead I would rather want to get the other pact going. It was quite a bit of a close decision if I want to get additional resource or food production for me out of this pact. Also, I had to think about which player I want to offer it. Maybe we can first take a look at how my civilization looks after I go for my turn, because I will finish the ocean liner service with the engineering genius. Then to get out of corruption I have to increase my population 1 time normally, so this turn I think is relatively clean. Of course I sadly miss out on those yellow cards, but it's maybe not too bad. And no, I could have taken additional food production, and this additional food production might be very valuable for me. As soon as maybe H3 starts, I lose 2 yellow tokens and I go deeper into my yellow bank with the ocean liner service, then the additional food production could help me quite a lot to maybe not have any famine. However, the food production won't do a lot for me short term. I will just save up some food this turn, and then in the next 2 turns, then I will have maybe 3 food saved up, which there isn't enough to get another population going. And then at the next yellow bank I will then just be at 0 food production. I won't have any famine issues, that's nice. But the thing is also I will have all the while 3 food lying around, and that could definitely potentially cause corruption sometimes. Now I'm at 0 food, I will have maybe some famine issues, but maybe I can just either build an additional farm or maybe just go for selective breeding at some point, and at least I get some additional resource production immediately. Maybe that can help me short term, hopefully also long term. But it was still a close decision, because it definitely can be awkward for me if I go deep into my yellow bank and have only those 2 farms, but I was hoping that I will find a way around it, and it could also be a little bit awkward when I just have this food lying around. So I offered this pact for additional resources, and then I thought maybe for Himmelstosh the additional food is still somewhat nice, but also maybe not that great. He doesn't get a lot out of it immediately. Binki, for him it could be quite nice to get if he maybe goes for Maria Theresa and Airren. I could have maybe also offered it to him, but at the end I rather offered it to Himmelstosh. And that is then my turn. I thought about delaying the ocean liner service, maybe making it that I can go for Maria Theresa, because she's of course quite a nice leader with the ocean liner, but at the end all of the turns that I did with delaying the ocean liner service just didn't feel too great. But I definitely thought about it, but there are still also some other nice leaders that I can go for. Nobel, maybe Newton if I get scientific method or journalism. Catherine can maybe also be fine, so I was not willing to sacrifice just finishing the ocean liner service this turn just to get Maria Theresa in my hand. Airren seeds, and the knowledge of the ancients is revealed. Himmelstosh gets quite a lot of value out of it, with having gone for Michelangelo very nicely. But the 3 additional signs that I get out of it can still be quite nice for me. Airren takes the rifleman, that's an important technology for him, takes the wave, takes the coal, and then just goes for 1 coal upgrade to get out of corruption, increases his economy. Himmelstosh then seeds, and the border conflict is revealed, so sadly I get hit by a strength event now, but I was weakest for a while now, so that's what I have to expect. And I sadly have to lose 1 thing at my turn now. Binki will get some additional resource now, with him being still in bronze mines. That is definitely quite valuable for him. Himmelstosh this turn will go for 1 upgrade to a scientific method. Will also go for the justice system, that of course is very nice and important for him to get, with only being on theocracy. And then he also takes the cannons. Of course that's also a technology that he wants to have with having the Great Wall. He leaves himself with just 12 resource, so the next turn he can maybe just finish the railroad if he wants to. Binki seeds, and a Cold War is revealed, so sadly another nice event for both of them after the foray, and now also both of them share the Cold War, get some additional signs, and that of course can give them quite a nice boost. Binki could potentially think about going for the coal, but instead he rather wants to go for the organized religion, goes for 1 upgrade, and then builds the Knights to get out of corruption, takes the Rifleman, and also takes Maria Theresa. And she definitely might be a very nice leader for him, especially with being on low resource and with having a decent food production going. At my turn I again see what is on top, and I wasn't too happy what I saw, but I still was willing to push. And as you can see, I actually made a decision to seed the terrorism into the deck here. And the terrorism might be quite close from the culture, because I'm not that much behind Binki, and now the event that is on top is the Ravages of Time, meaning the Roman roads will switch from science to culture basically, so I will also get some additional culture reduction this turn. So it will be very close, but Binki at his turn will also lose the Colossus to the Ravages, will get some additional culture reduction, and also maybe get some additional culture out of Maria. I was hoping that I will be able to manage it, and also maybe I can even have a little bit of famine in at one point in case that will be necessary. So I was willing to see the terrorism, because while I maybe have a fine position, I have some decent civil military actions, I have strong resource production, I have the ocean liner service, and I can maybe this turn go for scientific methods, so I have a decent position. But I still felt like maybe my position has some flaws, because at the moment I still don't have any tactic. I will take the cannons, but I don't know if I get a tactic for that. I don't know yet if I will get a cavalryman, so that could be an issue. At the moment I get 2 strength out of Joan of Arc. As soon as those are gone in the military action, I definitely could have some trouble with my military. Himmelstosh will get a railroad, and also Himmelstosh and Airren just have a bit of a culture lead already. Airren will maybe go for more coal upgrades, might be also be able to get a very nice economy. Himmelstosh might be able to get a nice economy. So I was not too certain how nice my position actually is here, especially because I also might get some potential famine issues with the ocean liner service relatively soon. So I still thought I have a decent position, but I also wasn't too happy, and so I thought I might need an event that just gives me something nice, and with that I was willing to see the terrorism, even though it can maybe be a little bit awkward, but I will have the knowledge about it, and hopefully I will find a nice way to prepare myself for it. And as said, now the Ravages of Time will be revealed. I have to lose the Rome roads. That is not that great. I think at this point I rather want to have the science production, and also losing the yellow token will mean that I will get even earlier into the famine. So with that, maybe offering the pact for food could have been better, but we can also maybe see this turn that also the additional resource might already be quite nice potentially. And yeah, so I lose the Roman roads. Airren at least also might get hit by that quite heavily. He either has to lose the Silk Road or the Hanging Gardens. That will be a tough decision for him. Himmelstosh maybe also gets hit by it a little bit. He might lose the Pyramids, which is not that great with not having the most civil actions. So at least he might go into H3 with only being on 5 civil actions. And Binki will lose the Colossus before he gets the H3 draws. So for him maybe it's not too bad, but at least all of the opponents also lose something from this event. This turn I use the ocean liner service, and I think the most important thing is first of all to take those cannons, because it is the last copy. I don't know yet if I get a cavalryman. Without the cannons I might just be way too vulnerable. At the moment Himmelstosh could just finish the railroad, could easily go for war. Binki can just go for an additional warrior, can easily go for war, so I need something in hand so that I at least can threaten something. I don't have a tactic, but I need to be able to threaten something. So I need those cannons, but I also wanted to increase my science production, increase my economy, so I go for the scientific method here, and I go for 1 upgrade. Also, as you can see, I sadly lost 1 lab to the border conflict. And I thought about just going for 1 upgrade and even building an additional lab, just going for 6 science production. That might be quite strong. With the scientific method I'm also nicely prepared for a potential Newton. But I think going for an additional scientific method would just be too greedy here. Too greedy, because as I said when I talked about taking the cannons, I think I need to be able to threaten some strength. And if I invest 8 resources into the scientific method, now I'm only at 9 resources after my turn, and then I can only build 1 cannon, and that might just not be enough to threaten. Meaning that I could very likely get hit by a war. If I leave myself with 10 resources, at least I can threaten to go for 2 cannons and maybe the defensive army tactic, or to go for 2 cavalrymen and the classic army tactic, so at least my opponents have to take this possibility into account when they think about declaring a war against me. I think that's very important, so sadly I can't build this lab yet, or at least I think it would be too greedy. I could just maybe take the reserves. That could be a nice card to potentially avoid some famine. But at the end I made a decision to build a religion here, and the main reason is that those 2 events were seeded by Airren, And at this point, I think there weren't that many H1 events left. This list, I think, isn't completely accurate because I think the events that I've discarded aren't shown there. And I had the Rebellion in hand at some point, but I think the deck got reshuffled, so there was the possibility that that one might have been drawn later on again by Airren. And then I thought that that could potentially have been one of the events that he have seeded with having the Hanging Gardens, and then I could potentially lose 2 civil actions. I might need the Theology very soon anyway, and with building that I still have enough resource to go for 2 cannons and potentially also a 3rd farm to avoid maybe some famine if I want to. So that is what I went for at the end, but maybe taking the reserves to have a nice way around the famine could also be nice, but it just felt like a Rebellion could potentially be in there, and with that I instead built a Theology that at least also makes sure that I'm not the weakest, even though I didn't really expect Airren to have seeded any strength events, but I'm also maybe a bit safer from an aggression. Maybe I just look a little bit more threatening, even though of course Joan of Arc will be gone very soon, so yeah, at the end I just went for this additional religion. And then I do draw some more events, sadly no tactic. Airren offers the promise of military protection, wants to get some additional strength, but Himmelstosh isn't willing to give him this pact. And Airren has to deal with the ravages of time. He probably gets hit the hardest by this event, and he makes the decision to lose the Hanging Gardens, but now of course he has to find a way to get an alternative, way to get some happy faces, so he takes the efficient upgrade, takes the team sports, is willing to delete this warrior in order to go for team sports, at least gets a little bit of strength back from the team sports, but with only being 3 military actions, he's definitely a bit in a vulnerable position, goes for the navigation, but no, depending on how much defense cards he has, he might be a little bit in trouble, but maybe he also wasn't just willing to delete any of those mines or farms that of course could also be quite bad at some point, and so he dispensed this warrior, and with that he at least can also go for 1 upgrade to selective breeding, meaning that he will, in case the age doesn't end, be able to go for an additional population at his next turn. Himmelstosh goes for an aggression, and Airren interestingly can't defend, but I think it very likely might also be that he could defend, but he is just not willing, because this infiltrate maybe doesn't really hurt him that much. Of course, Himmelstosh gets 3 culture, Airren loses Leonardo, but the age might potentially end before his next turn, then he loses Leonardo anyway, but even if it doesn't end, he would maybe not get that much out of Leonardo, maybe he could take a leader and get a civil action back from him, but I think even if he has a defense card, he might maybe just make the decision to not defend, to maybe be better prepared for potential aggressions that could be worse for him, but Himmelstosh gets a little bit of additional culture, and maybe it will still hurt Airren a little bit. But he also sacrifices a little bit of a draw, so yeah, an interesting decision, but for 1 draw it might be worth it to get additional culture going. And then he will finish the railroad, takes the efficient upgrade, and develops the cannons. Is now 22 strength, and at the next turn he threatens to take a yellow token with Catherine, which again could be quite annoying for me, to lose another yellow token, which could mean that I get even deeper into famine very early. Binki then goes for another aggression, and Airren again can't defend, so at this time I think he definitely would have defended if he could, but against Binki also would need 2 defense cards, so it could still be that he has at least 1 in hand, and he gets hit by the spy here, which is definitely quite a setback for him. He is now only at 1 science. For Binki, I think the additional science is quite useful, being able to go for a government form, while still being able to go for some other technologies relatively soon, and Airren is now sitting only at 1 science, and has definitely some issues, can't invest into a military tech at his next turn, so he definitely has a little bit of trouble. Binki then goes for Maria Theresa, goes for the Republic, develops the Republic, increases his population, develops the Rifleman, and then builds an additional farm that will give him more value with Maria, uses the Patriotism as long as we are still in age 2, and then he goes for 1 upgrade, is at 20 strength now, is not enough to not be in danger of getting yellow token stolen, but still is at a nice amount of strength, and as we can see, he just skips the coal, so he just plans on staying in bronze mines. He has 9 civil actions, so with that of course he will be able to take a lot of yellow cards, and maybe he is also still hoping to maybe get the Suez Canal going, but he also doesn't have enough resource to finish that immediately at the next turn, but with the Engineering Genius maybe he can finish it quite nicely in 2 turns. I at this point seeded, and I seeded a Pestilence into the deck, an event that I also considered to seed earlier, and I also kept it in hand because I have the Ocean Liner service, and I thought maybe I won't get hit by that event as heavily as maybe some of the other players will, because none of those players went for a lot of food production apart from Binki. So I wanted to seed this, and I also saw that there is not a very bad event for me on top. It's only the wealthy territory. And Binki wins that, and I thought this wealthy territory could be very important for Binki, because he ended his turn with only being on 3 resources, but now with the additional resources that he gets from the wealthy territory, he is now at 9, he has another colony, and now out of the sudden he could, even if the Suez Canal is in the 3 civil action area, he could just take and finish it, and that could just give him a very, very big boost. So I wasn't too happy that he got this territory, that this territory is in there, but I also couldn't do that much. I was willing to bid 1 swordsman my card, but already that would be quite a bit risky, because I might need those defense cards to defend myself. This turn I use the ocean liner service. Also I wanted to see to maybe get the terrorism out quicker. 2 of the science leaders are on the row. I could just wait to get one of them at the next turn, but I can also just take one of them this turn and then at least get the civil action back from Joan of Arc, and also get the science production already, which might be quite important. Normally when I have the scientific method, I think that Newton might be a bit stronger than Nobel, just saving some civil actions, but I think in this situation Nobel might be the better choice, because I think the 2 strength might just be very important for me here. If I lose Joan of Arc, it will be only a 10 strength, and even if I go for some cannons, Newton without the additional strength from Nobel, I might still be a lot more in trouble, and also the leader that I don't take might be taken by Airren, so if I don't go for Nobel, then maybe Airren goes for Nobel. I will be at 2 less strength here, I will have 2 more strength, and that definitely could make a difference on which of one of us maybe gets a little bit more pressure gets more pressured by Himmelstosh and Binki. Both of them have some strength potential, and so I thought it's too important to get additional strength from Nobel here. But before I go for Nobel, I still use the military action from Joan of Arc, and then I will switch to him, going up to 5 science production at least. Then I also will take the patriotism. I think having a lot of resource to invest into my military potentially could be quite important. I don't have a tactic yet, and maybe I will have to make up for it with just building more units, or maybe with potentially upgrading to some stronger units at some point, and having as many resources as possible could be quite important. I have famine, and I could potentially just fix it now, but then maybe I could get a little bit into trouble with the terrorism that I've seeded into the deck. Maybe I could still manage it with avoiding the famine here, but I have 1 in the lead, and then maybe in order to be prepared for the terrorism, I'm not allowed to push any events, because the cult from that might push me ahead of Binki, and so instead of building this farm here, I instead build another theology, again something that I might have to build at some point anyway, and also as I said at the turn before, I thought that maybe this event could potentially be the rebellion, one of those events seeded by Airren. One of them is still on top, and well, actually no, that is of course not it is actually the case. I seeded, so Joan of Arc didn't give me the knowledge about this event, but no. So I thought that could potentially save me 2 civil actions if the H should end and I lose the 2 yellows. So if Airren doesn't seed. And also it might just be something that I need to invest into anyway, and it also makes it that I'm more nicely prepared for the terrorism. I lose 4 culture to famine, but at least I get an additional culture production, so it's basically only 3 culture that I lose. And also like this, I don't commit to a 3rd farm yet, meaning that if I get the last copy of selective breeding, then I maybe can still just stay on 2 farms and start going for an upgrade to selective breeding. So at the end I just like the solution more to go for an additional temple. I was hoping to maybe get a tactic, sadly no tactic, at least another colonization card, maybe that can be useful to defend myself. Airren offers the promise of military protection this time to me. Again, he wants to have additional strength, but I definitely don't want to offer that one, because, no, as said, it might be quite important which one of us maybe gets a little bit more strength going. Otherwise, no, if he gets no additional strength, maybe the aggressions and potential wars that could potentially happen from my opponents could be directed against me instead of against Airren. Airren then takes the frugality, takes the architecture, destroys a religion, increases population, builds an additional team sports, interestingly, for some additional strength maybe, and also uses the fission upgrade with the Silk Road bonus to get 1 upgrade for free to his farms. And maybe at the next turn he can then go for Rifleman to get some additional strength going. H3 starts now. Himmelstosh uses the ability of Catherine. That means that sadly I will already be very deep into my yellow bank now and will have even 2 famine at my next turn. Himmelstosh goes for the oil, but he doesn't go for the selective breeding. Interestingly, of course, the oil will be very strong for him, but I was happy that he maybe doesn't go for the selective breeding, so that I can maybe go for the selective breeding as a solution to my famine issues. But with the railroad, the oil is of course very, very strong, and Himmelstosh is willing to just go for one upgrade, going up to 13 resource production. That is of course very strong, especially because he also has the culture lead, so he definitely doesn't have a bad position. On the other hand, he also has at least still some weaknesses. He is now quite low in science. Also, he has no food upgrades yet, so maybe he won't that easily be able to invest the resource of the oil very nicely, but maybe he can just delete some of the mines at some point, go for some more upgrades, and then he can still manage and be at a very nice position, and maybe, who knows, he can even go for Marie Curie at the next turn. Then it's Binki's turn. He will take the computers. He could potentially, as said, just take and finish the Suez Canal. Maybe that could be quite strong, but maybe he can also just wait for it to go for the next turn, and instead he goes for the computers. Computers could potentially maybe be a nice card for some of the opponents, but I mean, both I and Airren can't go for it immediately. Himmelstosh can't go for it immediately, so it's interesting that he's willing to grab them for 3, but it could just be a card that has a lot of potential, so he will just take it here. Goes for one more upgrade to his religions, uses the resource from Maria to go for one additional rifleman, even goes for the additional upgrade, makes sure to be the strongest now, takes the cavalryman, so sadly that card will be taken away, and sadly he also takes the selective breeding, so he definitely goes for maybe some denial. I mean, the cavalryman I think is of course bad for me, but I think that is just very useful for himself as well, to maybe be prepared for some H3 tactics, but the selective breeding I think is just a hate draft, but one that might be worthwhile, because it would be quite nice for me, but not only for me, also for Himmelstosh potentially. So now 2 of his opponents could maybe still need to go for mechanized agriculture at some point, but there are only 2 copies, and those might also potentially be late, so this high draft might definitely have an effect, potentially even against both 2 of his opponents. But interestingly, he invests a lot of resource, so he isn't prepared to just take and finish the Suez Canal at the next turn. I thought maybe he just doesn't have a colony in hand. I have drawn, I think, at least 2 H2 colonies, so even though he has drawn some H2 cards, maybe it could mean that he doesn't have an H2 colony in hand, because I think if he had one, he either would go for Suez Canal this turn, or at least prepare himself to be able to go for it at the next turn, or maybe he just has other plans, but I thought, no, it might be that he just doesn't have a colony at this point. Now it's my turn. I wanted to continue pushing to maybe get the terrorism out as quickly as possible, and I see the immigration in for now. And the event on top is not the rebellion, instead it's the vast territory, and Binki again will be able to win it. It means it for 1 unit, has also some colonization cards, is not in danger of an aggression, and of course with the additional yellow tokens and food, that also will be quite nice for his Maria. I this turn used the ocean liner service, and now I'm here at 2 famine, and I don't have a very nice way to fix that. I basically have only one way to fix it, and that is with building 2 more farms, which is of course not ideal, but it will be what I have to do here. So I built those 2 farms. I don't want to lose any more culture with famine, and going for mechanized agriculture would also be quite a bit of an investment. And then the question is, how do I want to use this turn? I basically can't do that much. I can maybe build another cannon, maybe Blade of Patriotism to potentially save some resource if I want to, but apart from that I can maybe just only take some cards potentially. And at the end, I took a look again also at Binki's position. He will get some population going, has still Maria, can maybe try to build up some military. Himmelstosh has the Great Wall. There's even a chance he has the defensive army that could be quite dangerous then. And I don't have any tactic. I won't have the most population because some of them will be unhappy, and at some point I might have to put some in even more farms, which is quite annoying. So at this point I thought I could definitely get into trouble, and with that I made the decision to just take Gandhi here. I think both me and Airren, as said, have some troubles with the military. Airren also doesn't have the most population, has only 3 military actions, doesn't have the most science. So we both have some issues, and I just thought it could make quite a difference which one of us has maybe Gandhi available, because even though of course the opponents might prepare themselves to even have enough military actions to go against Gandhi, maybe they can't easily do it, and then I could just be quite safe, while Airren could potentially get into trouble. And yeah, so I thought Gandhi might be quite important here. Of course, maybe I can also limit myself, Maybe I somehow can still hope to go for a bit of military pressure myself, but I just thought it might really not that easily be possible, and I rather wanted to have Gandhi to potentially hide behind. Also with taking Gandhi, I was hoping that now Airren might go for Marie Curie, so that Himmelstosh doesn't get Marie Curie, because I think for him that would be quite a big boost, and for Airren he has Newton as an alternative, so Marie Curie is fine, definitely solid, but not as great as she would maybe be for Himmelstosh. And so that is also something. And then what I also was willing to take is the organized religion here, interestingly. That is all not meant as a denial, even though of course Himmelstosh could potentially need it at some point, but he doesn't really need a happy face immediately, so this is not really meant as a denial, it is meant to help myself, because at the moment I have only an urban building limit of 3, and as I said, some of the next workers might be unhappy, but with having the organized religion, I at least have the option to just upgrade those religions so that the next populations are free, and I think having this option is quite nice. And also I just don't have the most alternatives available, and with my last civil action I then just grab the architecture, and so that no, it's also not really a great card, I don't have a lot of science, but maybe I can save some resource when I potentially want to, for example, rebuild this lab, or maybe upgrade some of the religions, then it saves me a little bit of resource, helps for some impact, so I thought maybe there's a case where I want to go for that, and I could potentially also consider the journalisms, but I think investing into those would also be quite costly, maybe something that I can't really allow myself. I mean, maybe if I build an additional lab, I could potentially also think about building this journalism, but at the end I rather wanted to have the architecture, but I thought that both of those cards maybe don't really want to use, so maybe I could also just float the civil action, maybe I could just play the patriotism and then build an additional cannon. So no, I'm not too certain about this architecture here, but I thought maybe it can be somewhat helpful for me. Especially if I can hide behind Gandhi, and maybe I can even manage to be at some point a little bit greedy, maybe go for some movies or multimedias, and then the architecture can potentially maybe help me to build more of those. I draw the mechanized army tactic, so finally I have a good tactic available. It won't be an easy transition, maybe if there's a colony coming and I get the tanks, then maybe that could be a nice tactic to have. I stay the weakest, which is maybe bad, so maybe I should have built a cannon. Maybe that could have been an option, but I also didn't have any tactic for the cannons yet, so maybe I also didn't want to commit, even though most of the tactics work quite nicely with cannons, so maybe that could have been an option. But there is luckily no strength event on top, instead a historic territory. Now I was kinda hoping that maybe Binki will win it, because that would make it a lot easier to prepare for the terrorism in case that one isn't revealed very early. But Airren is now able to win it. He wins it for just a warrior, gets some additional culture from the historic territory, also has more than enough happy faces now. He interestingly will go for Newton, doesn't go for Marie Curie, at least not yet. Saves then a civil action from going for Newton, goes for Rifleman, takes the rockets, takes the communism, and takes Marie Curie, so he will still take Marie Curie in hand, but goes for Newton first. And the reason for that might maybe be that he wants to do a communism revolution at the next turn. Getting more military action might be very helpful, and then he can do the revolution while also still having one more civil action. With that, he maybe was willing to go for Newton and for Marie Curie instead of just only going for Marie Curie. Now it's Himmelstosh's turn, he cedes, and sadly the politics of strength is revealed. That one will be quite bad, and I think a reason why I actually stayed weaker was that I wanted to make it maybe more likely that Airren cedes, so that the terrorism is revealed more quickly, but sadly that backfires now, and I get hit by the politics of strength. I will miss out on some draws. Himmelstosh has a lot of draws now already. He gets the first copy of Air Forces, and then he just makes sure to get a lot of science production going. At least he doesn't have a lot of population available, but he has now very strong resource and science production. His weakness are definitely civil actions and food, but he has also a big culture lead, and with that I think he has quite a nice position. Binki offers the international tourism to Airren. Sadly, Airren accepts it. I was hoping that maybe he won't accept it, because Binki has only one wonder, so Airren only gets one additional culture production, and Binki gets the production earlier, and he gets 2. But Airren still gets the additional production, at least against Himmelstosh and me, and so he was maybe willing to accept it. And then Binki will go for Churchill. He is still in bronze mine, so I think the additional resource that he might get out of Churchill are quite important. Before electing, he of course makes sure to get one more activation out of Maria, but then he will switch to Churchill, uses his additional science and resources to go for Rifleman, takes the air forces, takes the reserves and the fundamentalism, so he definitely starts preparing for a big military push here. Now it is my turn and I seed the freedom of movement into the deck. I just wanted to open the terrorism now to destroy those buildings as early as possible. But sadly the terrorism is late and international negotiations are revealed. At least I can choose for myself what I want to lose and what not. But no, it's still not great. I lose some additional science here, but the science definitely could have been quite useful for myself as well. So that's definitely not great, but no. At least maybe the terrorism will be revealed relatively quickly now, but it also means that I maybe can't go for Gandhi really this turn, because if I elect him then I will have more culture than Binki, and then I again won't be able to win the terrorism, so I have to keep Gandhi in hand for one more turn, which is maybe not too bad, because the science from Nobel is still quite useful, and I was also thinking that the danger that I was already declared this turn is maybe not that big, but it's definitely possible, so I have to be a little bit careful. Yeah, but I at the end was not willing to, or I think it's not too bad to maybe not elect Gandhi yet, hopefully. And then I will use the ocean liner service, I will play the patriotism, build one more cannon, get a little bit stronger this turn, and then I will take the multimedia, the urban growth, the military build-up and the revolutionary idea. I will just take a lot of cards. Military build-up will be very useful to defend myself. The revolutionary idea I think will be needed very much. I also consider taking the military theory, because I think if Himmelstosh gets this technology then he gets quite a nice strength boost, and also he might have done enough military actions to potentially even go for a war against myself. But I was hoping that maybe Airren could consider denying it, even though of course he might go for the communism revolution and then he might not deny it, but there are also still 2 copies left, so I might take it away and then Binki and then Himmelstosh might get another copy anyway. So at the end I was not willing to take it for 3, because that would mean that I have either to miss out. I mean, I could maybe build a cannon without using the patriotism, but I mean, that could be an option, and then I could take the military, build up the revolutionary idea and the military theory. But the thing is, at this point I'm also still quite a bit behind in culture, so if I just defend myself, maybe I'm also not that great of a position, and maybe having some ways to get a little bit of culture, maybe also preparing myself for impacts relatively nicely with the multimedia could be important, but maybe it could also be an idea to not play the patriotism. I think I should still have enough hand space. I mean, I took a lot of cards in hand, and then I could build this cannon without the patriotism and then take military, build up a revolutionary idea and a military theory, maybe even the reserves to even have more resources available and potentially be able to play it for food in case I have some more famine issues at some point. So no. So I played maybe a little bit greedily here with not taking the military theory away, but it would also be somewhat costly. But maybe it might also help me to defend myself potentially. So I'm not certain if it was the correct decision to take the multimedia here, but I also was just quite afraid that if I don't have anything in hand to invest my resource in nicely and maybe then hide behind Gandhi, then I also maybe don't have a nice position to get a nice position at the end. I mean, I was not too happy about my position anyway in this, so I was mainly hoping to maybe not be at the last place, maybe still having a shot at the second place. Yeah, but maybe I should play it a bit safe here, take military, build up revolutionary idea and the military theory. And then I will also reveal the mechanized army tactic already. As said, the danger is maybe not that big that I get hit by war, but there is the chance, and I thought it might be quite important to reveal this now. Without the patriotism I will be at 4 military actions, and now I have with the military build-up at least a chance that I can just build 2 cannons and 2 tanks, and then I can threaten quite a nice amount of strength. If I don't reveal it I can't do this. Of course I would need the tanks for that, but at least maybe that could potentially mean that I can go for more strength if I get hit by something. And so I just used the 1 free military action. I mean, it's free anyway because I got hit by the politics of strength, but yeah, I just used this military action to reveal the tactic to be able to go for more strength potentially in case I get hit by a war. Sadly I don't get any draws. Airren offers the promise of military protection, but this time the other way around. This time I would get 4 additional strength and he would get additional culture, so something that I definitely could consider, but at the end I still didn't want it, because the problem is, first of all, Airren can always cancel it, so maybe if I get hit by a war he will just cancel it, and then he just has gotten a little bit of additional culture while I missed out on some culture. And also in case he doesn't cancel it, stage 3 will be over relatively soon. Maybe it will be somewhat helpful for me, but I don't know it for certain if Airren will cancel it or not, so I don't have certainty about it, and at the end it might maybe not do that much for me, and I will just lose a little bit of culture against Airren, so I wasn't willing to accept it. And Airren goes for the communism revolution indeed, doesn't deny the military theory, but he has a nice way to get more military actions, then also elects Marie Curie with the one civil action that he has gotten back, and then just increases population, builds a rifleman, is now even the strongest for now, and can maybe the next turn potentially go maybe for rockets or even air forces, so he has maybe some ways to get stronger. Himmelstosh will go for a war with technology, and he goes against Airren, not against me, which I was very happy about. And maybe it is just because I don't have the most blue technologies. Maybe he hopes that he can steal the navigation, for example, from Airren. And of course Airren at this point has also a lot more culture, so he is maybe just a bigger contender, which also makes me maybe a little bit safe from this war now. And Himmelstosh goes for the war, goes for the military theory, has now 7 military actions, destroys a mine, destroys a farm, reveals the defensive army tactic, so he indeed has this tactic available, which is of course quite strong now with his Great Wall as well, and goes up to 45 strength, takes the reserves. Then it's Binki's turn, he cedes, and now finally the terrorism is revealed. Sadly it took a little bit while, but now at least I can still destroy some stuff. Binki has those organized religions, Himmelstosh has those labs, and Airren has maybe those team sports or maybe the H1 lab potentially. Binki then increases his population, uses Churchill, that allows him to go for the air forces, builds one air force, takes the patriotism, takes another patriotism, so he definitely is still preparing for war. Has also 3 military action that he uses to reveal the conquistadors tactic, and with that is already at 32 strength now. Maybe just wants to make sure that he doesn't get hit by an aggression from Himmelstosh. Now it's my turn, and I also know what is on top. And I just also wanted to get those 2 culture for seeding. Hopefully it will be a fine event, the iconoclasm. And I also know that there is nothing bad on top, and maybe even something nice, so I revealed a pestilence here. And now there is quite an interesting interaction between the pestilence and the terrorists, because all of my opponents, or not all of them, but for example, actually I already destroyed those buildings, so all of my opponents have 1 free population, all of them had no free population before I destroyed some buildings, meaning I destroy the buildings, and then now with the pestilence those workers will go back immediately into the yellow banks, so that's quite an interesting interaction. For Binki, of course, I destroyed the organized religion. For Airren, I destroyed the team sports, because I think it will be quite annoying getting this now back into this yellow bank. Then he can increase it, but it will be unhappy, so I think that will be quite annoying for him losing those team sports. And for Himmelstosh, I made an interesting decision, but I think it might be the correct one. I didn't destroy any of his labs. Instead, I destroyed the religion. Of course, those are the more expensive buildings, but he has a lot of resource production anyway, so if he wants to rebuild it, it's maybe not the biggest issue for him. And also he is very, very, very low in population. Now that he steals some science, he has enough science to go for air forces, and then he might just go for the next war potentially. He won the politics of strength, so it should be quite likely that he has some wars available, and then he maybe needs 2 more population in the air forces, so he maybe wants to delete some stuff anyway, and I think if he loses a lab, it might even be nice for him. It might even save him just a civil action, because he might want to delete it anyway. And if he loses the religion, he doesn't get a happy worker. Now he will even get, his population will be lost. He can get it back, but it will be unhappy, meaning he has to destroy 2 things now if he wants to go for air forces, and if I would destroy his lab, of course I destroyed a more expensive building, but then he has already 1 free population that he can use, and he doesn't have to spend a civil action for deleting it, so I think it's actually better to destroy his religion here. Especially also because the immigration is coming, so now he even has an unhappy worker, which is also nice, also for Airren. All of them have an unhappy worker now, so if the immigration should be revealed, that could be quite annoying for all of them. So I was hoping that this terrorism at least does a little bit of damage now. I will use the ocean liner service to increase my population. And now, of course, I have to do my best to prepare myself to not get hit by a potential war from Himmelstosh, because he could, of course, go against Airren maybe again if he has a war, but of course with having 7 military actions, there is also a chance that he will go against me, even when I go for Gandhi at least. He can only go for one Air Force, unless he has a hybrid war, but that would also be quite annoying for himself. So if he has a normal war of culture, he can only go for one Air Force if he goes for against me, but for two if he goes against Airren. I was hoping that this will make quite a difference. And so I use the Ocean Liner service. I will go for Gandhi this turn. I think this turn is very important. And while the defensive army tactic is quite strong for Himmelstosh, at least it also will be quite nice for me being able to copy that. There are no tanks on the row yet, but there are air forces, so I go for those air forces. I develop the air forces, and then I could do some potentially some different stuff now. I can maybe go for those organized religions and then just upgrade those to have more free population available. Maybe also scoring a Nobel Prize potentially. I can maybe take the satellites. They are not the greatest options, but there could be some things that I could do. But instead of the organized religions, I at the end went for those pro sports, because I think those will actually be quite nice also to maybe threaten more strength and to potentially defend myself later on. With that, I score a Nobel Prize. I'm now very low in science, so that could be an issue, especially if I want to go for mechanized agriculture at some point, or maybe the multimedia. But there's at least still 2 revolutionary ideas left, so maybe I have a chance to get one of those, and at least in 3 more turns I will have enough science to maybe then go for the mechanized agriculture or the multimedia. That might then be my last turn, so maybe then I at least might have again enough science to go for one of those technologies. And no, like this, I just thought I can go for those pro sports for some additional strength, and also just allowing myself to maybe delete some stuff a lot more easily. Because if I don't have those pro sports, maybe I could then go for organized religion and some upgrades, and maybe that could mean that I don't have to lead as much. But there is also still the freedom of movement coming. I thought that I can maybe put one religion into the bro sports. Maybe I can even build an additional bro sports, and then I can potentially just destroy all of those religions. I get some additional strength from the bro sports. And if I don't have any, and if I want to delete anything else, all of the other things I think would hurt. I can't really lose a farm. Losing a mine would definitely hurt. Losing the slab would hurt. So I think getting a better and more efficient happy phase solution might just be very nice in order to be able to delete some stuff. Maybe I can put one religion into the bro sports, maybe then even build one, and then I can maybe disband just some of those religions in case I really need some units. Also, it scores me Nobel Prize right now, and so at the end I was willing to go for the bro sports, because now things are looking very dangerous and I have to defend myself very nicely. With my last military action that I have, I will then use it to build one air force. The next turn, like this, I can copy the tactic, I can build one air force, and I can potentially build some pro sports. I was hoping that this will be enough to not get hit by a war from Himmelstosh, because against Airren he can build an additional air force, and Airren also can't maybe do that much to defend himself. I thought about, or actually let's, oh no, I will actually be weak. No, I thought about, no, I remember it. I thought about not building this air force, because in case I really want to cause some problems for Airren, I could make it that I stay weaker, because I was looking at Airren's civilization, and I thought maybe he could have the Napoleonic army tactic, then he could reveal it, play the wave, and then he has just enough resource to go for 2 rockets. He is just perfectly prepared for that, so maybe he has indeed that in hand and made sure that he is prepared for that very nicely. And now he can reveal the tactic, then he is the weakest, and he can play the wave of nationalism for 7 additional resources. And but if I stay weaker, then Airren can't that easily use the wave of nationalism for that much additional resources. But I thought with losing the team spots and with now maybe having to destroy some stuff, he's in quite a tough position anyway. Maybe I should make his position even tougher, but I also thought it could be quite important to spend the military action already this turn, so that I can just threaten a little bit more strength potentially for the next turn, because I will need to copy the defensive army tactic, and then now I can at least build 2 additional air forces. So at the end I thought that is more important than maybe causing some troubles, especially because that also only is maybe a big deal if he has the Napoleonic army. Other than that, maybe it isn't even that big of a deal. And also I have a very nice Gandhi drawing 3 wars, so that is quite funny. Maybe I accidentally activated the wrong cheat code here. And then Airren will see it, and the popularization of science is revealed. Sadly not the emigration. I was hoping that maybe that could be revealed now, and now that I destroyed all of the happy face buildings from my opponents, but no. Instead, the popularization of science is revealed, which is especially nice for Himmelstosh and Airren. At least I get one more culture out of it than Binki, and I thought maybe there is at least still a chance that I can finish before Binki. At the moment I have a little bit of a culture lead, but Binki of course can maybe still prepare himself to go for a war potentially, but I thought maybe there's still a chance, and so at least one additional culture against him. Airren, now that he lost the team sports, has to destroy some stuff. In order to have some free population, he destroys one printing press, destroys one mine, takes the reserves, develops the rockets, reveals the Napoleonic army tactic. He indeed has it in hand, and now that I got a little bit stronger, he can use the wave of nationalism for 7 resources and goes for building 2 rockets. At least that means that Himmelstosh can't steal that much, but that of course could also potentially be bad, because now Airren can maybe potentially keep the navigation unless Himmelstosh is willing to sacrifice something, which he isn't. And no, so I was not certain if I maybe would have been nice if Airren had even more trouble. Probably it would have been nice, but I didn't know for certain if he had this tactic. And also I would have maybe some more troubles because I couldn't throw as much strength. So at the end I didn't go for that. And Himmelstosh steals some science now. The big question now of course was, will he go for a war? And if yes, will he go against Airren or against me? And he goes for a war, and it will be against Airren. I think that makes some sense because, as said, now he can go for 2 instead of only 1 air force, and Airren has still a lot of cultures, so I think at this point he is definitely the bigger contender for Himmelstosh, so he goes for the war against Airren. Destroys some stuff, he keeps the lab, but I think if he had this one available for free from the terrorism, he might have still liked it, but unless he is now actually at 0 farms, has only 1 mine left, but this 1 mine is actually producing 10 resource, and he goes for 2 air force now, as now at 67 strength. Binki uses Churchill again for some additional science and resources, develops the cannons, takes the Manhattan Project, takes the engineering genius, uses the engineering genius 2 in the Manhattan Project, takes the reserves, destroys a lab, and then builds 1 air force to get out of corruption. And he is definitely also setting himself up for war. The question is, how does he want to do it? And I think he wants to use the Napoleonic army tactic that Airren just revealed. With going for the cannons, he has now prepared himself with the 2 the 2 patriotisms to go for a war. And then he can build 2 cannons, he can still copy the tactic, and he can finish the Manhattan Project. So he is definitely quite threatening. The good thing for me is he can't go against me, with him being on only 5 military actions and with me having Gandhi. So I am not in danger of a war from him. However, Himmelstosh could potentially be quite threatening for me, so I still have to be very careful. This turn I have only one way how I could use my politics phase, and I also made a decision to use it, and I will offer the military alliance to Himmelstosh. And no, I at this point just thought I have no chances to catch up to Himmelstosh anyway. I maybe have to hope to not finish last, maybe I still have some small chances to also finish at the 2nd place. And so I just thought it made the most sense to offer that to Himmelstosh. That means that Airren will lose more culture, which hopefully will increase my chance to finish before Airren. I could also offer it to Binki, then it means I have more strength against Himmelstosh, but now, while I don't have more strength against Himmelstosh has more strength against Airren with having this pact ongoing, so I think it doesn't make a big difference whether I offered it to Binki or to Himmelstosh when thinking about the chances, how likely it is if Himmelstosh will go if he has another war against Airren or against me. And so with Himmelstosh probably not at all being in reach for me, I just offered a pact to him instead of offering it to Airren or to Binki. That means that I lose the International Trade Agreement pact, but I came to the conclusion that maybe I can be fine without the additional resources that I get from this pact. I then use the ocean liner service, and I have sadly only an unhappy worker. I then copy the defensive army tactic. I think that's something that I have to do. I go up to 40 strength. Then with building this arena, I'm even at 44 strength. I do build a bro sports, but without using the urban growth. With that I can get out of corruption. I then take the United Nations. And then it was a little bit awkward what I should do with my last 3 civil actions, because I can of course take some cards, but the thing is it would be really nice for me if the age doesn't end at the next turn. And I did some calculations, and if I don't take any cards, there is, I think, a decent chance. However, it's still possible, but if Himmelstosh goes for another war, he might have to spend some civil actions on that. Maybe he wants to go for bro sports or something, and if Binki goes for a war, he has a lot of civil actions, but he basically needs almost all of them to go for this war, so he can't take a lot of cards from the row. And so I was hoping that if I don't take any card, maybe the age doesn't end. However, it isn't for certain, because Airren maybe doesn't have that much that he can do very nicely, so he might just take some cards away in order to increase the chances that the age will end for me. And so I was not too certain what I should do with my last civil actions, and I then destroyed one of those religions. I don't know the happy face. Sadly, I missed out on some culture reduction, but I made a decision to build an additional farm here, because I think if the age should end before my next turn, then it could be quite bad if I don't have built this additional farm, because then I would need to build 2 farms at my next turn to not have any famine. Now if the age should end, I have only 5 farms, so I will be at -1 food, but I also produce 1 food now, so I could be completely fine with those 5 farms at my next turn if the age should end, which is definitely possible. But it still didn't feel too great. I thought about some other things. I thought about just floating my civil actions and maybe keep the temple, but no, maybe with Airren not being able to do that much, he can maybe to defend the war, maybe just destroy something, play reserves, and then just take a lot of cards from the row. And with that, maybe make it quite likely that the age could potentially end for me. And so I thought it could be quite nice to be at least a little bit prepared for that. I don't have enough science to go for the mechanized agriculture at the next turn. I thought about maybe I can also build an additional lab to maybe have more science at the next turn, but investing into 1 upgrade into mechanized agriculture is also quite costly, and if I want to finish the United Nations, which won't be the biggest wonder, but at least it will give me a little bit of points, it's the best wonder that I can get, then I maybe can't invest into the mechanized agriculture anyway, so I thought maybe having this additional farm might be nice anyway, even if the age doesn't end. Maybe it's something that I need at some point anyway. So I go for that. Definitely not a great turn, but with not taking any cards from the row, I was hoping that there will be another turn, which will not only be nice to, in order to not have any famine, but also to get another population out before I lose those 2 yellow tokens. And I this time will draw 2 cards. This time I was quite happy about the draw. The Impact of Progress I probably won't be able to play, but Impact of Wonders is a decent impact against both of the players that I maybe still have a chance against. And also, of course, I had to think about how do I want to prepare myself for war, because Himmelstosh could potentially have another war, and he could again go against Airren, but with this 1 big war against Airren, maybe Airren is not the biggest contender any longer, and Himmelstosh could think about going against me, but I have a relatively decent defense, because with the military build-up I could potentially think about just going for 1 air force and another defensive army, and with the freedom of movement I could even go for an additional bro sports. So that means that I think I could go up to something like 70 strength or something like that. So Himmelstosh, or it was maybe even a little bit more than 70 strength, so Himmelstosh could go for a war, but in order to win the war he would maybe need to build even more units, maybe would have to sacrifice then, and maybe it would be a little bit too uncertain for him, so I was hoping that with threatening that much strength, Airren, if Himmelstosh has an additional war, could still be the better target. Airren will cede, and a crime wave is revealed. I was quite happy about it, because at the moment I am actually not one of the 2 weakest players, but that might change again very quickly. Airren takes the tanks, takes the computers, takes the bro sports, maybe takes that one away from Himmelstosh, and then he plays the reserves for resources, and then just builds a rocket as a defense against this war from Himmelstosh. But he's in a dangerous situation here, because Binki prepared himself for war, and Himmelstosh might potentially also have another war. So again, it was very interesting to see what Himmelstosh will do at his politics phase. He could potentially go for a war against me, probably could win one, even though it might be relatively close. But of course he could again go against Airren, who doesn't have as much strength potential. And it is also what he will do, and also I think Gandhi might help me quite a bit here, because what he will do now is to just go for some upgrades to modern infantry, and if he would have gone against me, could have only gone for 1 upgrade, meaning that again with the war against Airren he can go for more strength. And he also then just builds religion to not have an unhappy worker, gets a little bit of culture reduction, takes the mechanized agriculture, and goes for a total of 3 upgrades to be at 79 strength now. And Binki also goes for war against Airren, so that is of course not great for Airren, and Binki can now finish the Manhattan project for 13 additional strength, only 1 additional culture production, but he makes sure to keep the slab and only destroy it after he has finished the Manhattan project. And then he plays the patriotism, plays another patriotism, copies the Napoleonic army tactic, uses Churchill, and then just builds 2 cannons, takes the endowment to maybe get a little bit of culture also out of that. And he also makes sure to save up a lot of food in order to maybe have a nice chance to potentially go for the Red Cross at his last turn. And with only taking the endowment, the age just doesn't end before my turn, which I was very happy about, so that is quite nice for me. I seed the impact of wonders into the deck, and that hopefully will be quite nice, and the freedom of movement is revealed. I use the freedom of movement to put this Air Force into the lab. And using the Air Force is quite nice because now I don't need to threaten as much, can't get hit by any wars any longer, I won't get as much strength so that I'm able to defend against an aggression from Himmelstosh or Binki anyway. So I can just put the Air Force somewhere and then I can just use the military build-up to rebuild the Air Force. And I even thought about putting the Air Force into an H2 form, of course, then I could also use a swordsman, but maybe if I just want to rebuild a unit that I've sent away, then I could even use the Air Force and just rebuild for free with the military build-up, and it was actually a close decision if I want to put something into the lab or if I maybe want to put something into the farm. And a lot has to do with the Red Cross that is coming down the row. And the thing is, Binki, if the Red Cross is available at the 1 civil action area, then he has enough civil actions to take the Red Cross, play the reserves of food and completely finish it. However, if the Red Cross stays on 2 civil actions for him, then he can only build 4 stages, meaning that I maybe could have a chance to build the last stage if I get an additional farm going. Also, maybe there's a small chance, and maybe Airren doesn't have that much to do. I thought he probably has enough to do, but he could maybe just destroy 2 things. I mean, he also has some uprising issues, so it's maybe unlikely that he will go for the Red Cross, but maybe he could potentially think about it as a denial. I thought it's unlikely, but maybe it is somehow possible, and then I also could maybe build an additional stage. But I thought it is more likely that maybe Binki gets it and that he has to take it for 2, and then I could build an additional stage. But at the end, I thought it is maybe not that likely, because if I set myself up to build an additional stage, then I think Airren could maybe try his best to let the International Red Cross be available for 2 civil for once in this 1 civil action area for Binki, because with Binki getting this war and the Red Cross, I think Airren has a bad position anyway, but his best chances he might have against me, so he would like to make sure that I don't get the stage, and so if I prepare for it, then I might just not get it at the end, so at the end I just put a work into the lab, and that work will allow me to get a Nobel Prize at the next turn. For that I will take the revolutionary idea, I also will take the mechanized agriculture, I will play the military build-up to rebuild the Air Force to at least not be in danger of getting hit by an aggression from Airren. I thought it's maybe unlikely, because maybe he needs the military action to build some stuff, but I mean he might also get the military theory, and with that and with the military theory, I think it's also very, very unlikely that Airren would take the Red Cross. Just something I thought about and I had to check. But I think, if someone goes for the Red Cross, it will be Binki. And but with that, it could potentially be that Airren could go for an aggression. And I think I have only H2 defense cards in hand, or one of them. I think it is at least an H2 defense card, so I need some more strength to be able to defend at least against an aggression from Airren, which could maybe be my contender for the 3rd place. I didn't think I have good chances for the 2nd place, maybe still some small chances, but Binki, especially if he gets the Red Cross completely, might just be out of reach for me. And so I rebuild this Air Force, and then I have 2 civil actions left, and I just use it to take the democracy. I could also just take another urban growth, maybe I should do this, but I thought that with Airren getting hit by those 2 wars, I should have very good chances to finish at the 3rd place. And so I wanted to keep maybe some small chances for the 2nd place alive. And with not taking those urban growth, I leave the chance that the Red Cross will be available only for 2 civil actions, or the 2 civil action area for Binki, because now that I can't build a stage anyway, maybe Airren will make sure to not take any cards. Now he also could have an interest in Binki not getting that for one civil action, and Himmelstosh might have an interest in as well. And maybe with Binki only getting 4 stages, maybe I still have some very small hopes. And with me thinking that I have very good hopes for the 3rd place, I was willing to leave this chance alive. But maybe I could also just take the urban growth, because I think those chances are very small anyway, and there are still also some small chances that I might finish at the last position. But I at the end thought it might be better to maybe leave those very small chances for the 2nd place alive. And at the next turn I can then go for Nobel Prize and then potentially just finish the United Nations. I was thinking that maybe it could have been a mistake to build this farm at the turn before. I mean, maybe not, because maybe the age could have ended and then I could have had some big issues. But now that I had spent those resources on it, or maybe I should have built a farm, but maybe I should have just used the urban growth already on the bro spots at the turn before, take corruption, because then I would have 16 resources this turn, and that would be enough to finish the United Nations. And then I could finish it before there is the danger that I might potentially get plundered, because now I could get hit by a plunder, and then maybe I can't finish the United Nations. So that maybe could have been a reason to use the urban growth in the bro spots before. Maybe I needed that urban growth, wanted to still have that. Maybe that, I don't remember all of my war calculations, but maybe I could have gone for another bro spots with that if I don't have corruption and don't build up first bro spots with an urban growth. So maybe that was the reason, but now that was a little bit of an issue, because I can't really do anything to guarantee that I can finish the United Nations at the next, and I can just hope that I don't get blundered. At least if I don't get blundered, maybe I can go for multimedia or something like that, maybe prepare for some impacts, but the United Nations will probably be the better thing to do. Age 4 starts, and then Airren seeds. The emigration is now revealed, and all of my opponents will lose a population, so that's at least something. Airren uses the freedom of movement to put another worker into the team spots, will go for the military theory, destroys some stuff, and then he has just enough resources to go for another army, as now at 62 strength at least. But sadly he has taken the movies, meaning that now the Red Cross will be available for only 1 civil action for Binki, so I was hoping that maybe he wouldn't take any cards, so that there's a chance that the Red Cross stays on 2 civil actions, but maybe also just wanted to deny the movies from the opponents. Himmelstosh seeds, and the impact of colonies is revealed. That is quite a strong one for Binki, and I think with that, and also with the Red Cross being available for only 1 civil action, or with a 1 civil action area, I think now there are not any chances left for me to finish at the 2nd place. Himmelstosh goes for an upgrade to mechanized agriculture. That might be nice for some impacts. He also goes for Sid Meier, who gives him quite a big culture boost, and then just takes the efficient upgrade. And maybe Airren also just saw that Himmelstosh wants to go for a new leader, and that he very likely will take a card from the row. If Airren wouldn't have taken the movies, Mandela would have also been available here, so maybe it just didn't make a difference whether the Red Cross will stay on 2 civil actions or not for Binki, and maybe with that I should have also just taken the urban growth at the turn before, because I don't have any plans on going for the democracy. Then Binki will steal some culture from Airren, he will seed, and Iconoclasm is revealed. Not too great for me, because I could have maybe gotten the culture from Gandhi, and Himmelstosh and Airren both got the culture from Marie Curie and Sid Meier, but at least Binki will lose Churchill now, he loses the 3 culture from him, he will be able to go for the Red Cross, and builds all stages, so now I think his lead will be too big. And then at my turn I will just play the Revolutionary Idea, go for 2 technologies, finish the United Nations, I can't evaluate any impact, and then I will just build another religion, just preparing for getting a little bit of additional culture production, also preparing for potential impacts of harmony, impact of balance as well actually, and also impact of architecture. So that is that, and that I think should be the best thing that I can do. And then when we take a look at the culture before the final impacts, we can see that there are quite some big gaps between all of the players. Himmelstosh has quite a big lead, Binki has a big lead against me, I have a big lead against Airren, so it should be quite likely that nothing will change, but who knows, there are 6 impacts, so let's see what will happen. And the first one is the impact of strength, which is definitely not a great one for me. Airren manages to catch up 5 culture to me. Then there's the impact of wonders. That one was seeded by me. It was a very nice one for Himmelstosh, but I'm the second best at this impact. And then the impact of industry is plus 10 for Himmelstosh. With this railroad, I at least gain plus 6 out of that, so again a decent impact for me. Then the impact of happiness, which is again a decent impact for me, giving me plus 16. Airren gets plus 14 out of it. Then there's again a bad impact for me. The impact of culture makes it even that Airren can catch up 15 culture to me. Is now a little bit less behind, but with only 1 impact he should not be able to overtake me. The last impact is the impact of balance, and that one is again a decent one for me, giving me plus 10. And now, with that we have the final standings. Himmelstosh has a very nice win, has won with quite a big lead. Binki is at the 2nd place, I'm at the 3rd place, and Airren is at the last place. So not an ideal game for me, but at least I didn't finish at the last place. I think Gandhi helped me quite a lot. I was also, once the defensive army was revealed, I was able to threaten at least a little bit of strength, but just Himmelstosh not being able to use more military actions against me, so that he could only go for 1 air force in the first war over culture that he declared if he would have gone against me, and then in the second one he couldn't have gone for those upgrades to modern infantry. I think those maybe could have been factors that made his decision to go against Airren instead of going against me. So I think Gandhi helped me quite a lot. Also Binki then had only the chance to go against Airren instead of potentially going against me, and then also with me trying to threaten some strength, I didn't get hit by any war, and that at the end helped me to not be the last place. But no, definitely was awkward in some turns in H3 because I just somehow had to prepare for the military. I couldn't do that much stuff. I didn't have the most science. I then made a decision to build this 5th farm, which was a little bit awkward. And yeah, so maybe I could have also played some things better, for example with making sure that I can finish the United Nations. Maybe there were some concrete reasons with potentially some calculations for my war defense. I don't remember that exactly, but not having 16 resources to just finish the United Nations maybe was quite bad, because I potentially could get hit by a blunder then, but at the end I could finish it anyway, so didn't get punished for that decision. And then at least I could even build this additional religion with the urban growth. No, I had, I think, a fine game going, but it never was really that great. I had a Conmon, I had the Ocean Liner service, that was definitely fine, but yeah, I wasn't part of this upgraded medieval army tactic, and that can always be a bit of an issue. Himmelstosh had all of those strength wonders going, so there was always a bit of pressure. I didn't have a tactic, and I think that definitely caused some issues for me in this game. Luckily in the early game I got the open borders agreement, than that I maybe would have had even some more issues potentially. And yeah, so I had a somewhat decent economy. I think the selective breeding taken away was also definitely something that hurt me, and having to go for that many farms. So Binki, I think that Haydraft definitely did do something for him. And yeah. And then in H3 I just mainly tried to defend myself, apart from that one turn when I took the multimedia, where I maybe was a bit too greedy. That multimedia wasn't really used at the end, so I think just taking the military theory might have been the better move. Yeah, but if Airren wouldn't have gotten hit by that many wars, then maybe I also would have needed maybe some way to generate more culture, but maybe I needed to prepare myself anyway very nicely for some strength. And with the military theory gone, maybe there's at least a chance that the second one isn't available as early for Himmelstosh, which could make me a lot safer. So I think there were definitely some turns that I didn't play ideally at the end. At this game I was rather happy about my 3rd place. In the other 4-player game, and that the first game of the stage, they also finished at the 3rd place, but in that game I was unhappy, but in this game I was relatively happy because I had some issues, and I definitely also could have gone that I lose this game. Like this, at least I'm at the 3rd place and I score 1 point. And now we can also take a quick look at the standings to see what this result will change for the standings. And with winning this 4-player game, Himmelstosh is now in quite a nice position, has 5 games finished and has 18 points, so that was already quite a big step for him into advancing to the next stage. It definitely isn't fixed yet, but he has now a very nice foundation. I of course only finished at the 3rd place, but I still also have a somewhat decent position. I and Binki have now the same amount of points, but Binki has 2 more games finished already, so hopefully that will give me an advantage. And Airren has now also lost the second 4-player game. That is definitely not great for him, but he has also still 5 games to play. So if he gets some nice wins in, he has definitely still chances to advance to the next stage, but at the moment, of course, his position isn't that great. Alright, then I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. Maybe I will be able to get the next video going quicker, but in general in the next weeks and months it will be a little bit difficult for me to get those videos going, but I will do my best to do those when I will find the time for them, and I think maybe tomorrow I can record immediately another one, or maybe even 2, so that I have then some in my reserve. And yeah, but then maybe I can upload them a bit quicker, but yeah, I will just try to do my best to get those games going, but it can definitely be that it will maybe take a while from time to time. Alright, then have a nice time, thanks for watching, and then see you in the next video.